capital. Let's pause there and let's come to you now, Mr. Okuku. I'm sure you had followed through with the president's broadcast yesterday. Yes. From a general perspective, what's your opinion about some of the things he said?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk on this issue. First of all, I would say that it's a nice development that the president of the nation is now speaking on the events that are happening within the country. Unlike before, when the government sometimes will be silent and don't care what people are saying. But we are happy now that he's showing that he's hearing the hardship, the difficulties people are going through, which is you can see it all over the country. But like I said, his intention is very good. Only the speed at which he wants to do it is what is creating the problem. For the first subsidy removal, everybody knew that it was not as good as it used to be, because first of all, almost the whole of the Nigerian economy or the resources are going into only subsidizing fuel. But in order to remove fuel, there are certain things that should have been done. What we have expected was have been an executive order ordering the 3 refineries to come into operation in the next 3 months or 1 month. These are when these 4 refineries were working, and then based on the overhead costs, they say now the fuel is at so amount. We now know that we are no more subsidizing that, sending our dollars to some people. We are going to use naira because the raw material is from from Nigeria and naira, and so there would have been nothing like saying we pay dollar for the fuel we are consuming. But having said that, I think we are moving gradually to a situation where the government now knows. What I mean, government, the politicians now know that they need the people. When the people are happy, then they will be happy. Because,
just to interrupt you, sorry, we would come to what he said specifically for the manufacturing sector, but because you've just raised up the petrol subsidy removal situation and what it is causing, there are loads of people who still do not agree that the president's approach to this. We know that other palliatives were mentioned, transportation and the rest of them, that was going to be in place, monies for MSMEs and the rest. But many have said fixing the refinery would have been a better way to handle all of this. In fact, that is the fundamental solution to the problem.
Yes.
But then in the whole of his speech, nothing close to that was mentioned. All right. So what do you feel about that? What's your response to it?
I think is that he's still maybe what he is presenting to us is in a hurry. Eventually, you discover that is the principal thing he has to do.
But that's something that, don't you think it's something that perhaps he would have known before even coming into office, that if we were to solve the subsidy problem, and you've had a lot of time under different administrations, you've been a key instrument in the political system of this country, you would have had a team that would know that. If your team does not know till now that fixing the refinery is the first and major thing that we need to do, can we then say you have the right people working with you?
Of course, as at now, we are assuming that he's working solo because his team have not been on. He's not yet on board. So whatever
he has the chief of staff.
Yes, chief of that is not enough to make.
He has other advisors, I'm sure, people that speak with him.
Those people are not. Those people are humble. Humble persons in his government. When we have a team, it's when he has an executive council who can now debate and discuss issues. That's when we can now say.
So for MAN, you saw the ministerial list nominees.
Yes.
What does MAN say about it? Do you think that people on that list are people that can form a good team, or are humble people, like you said, within his government?
For me, I think looking at the list of those people, they are all people who have been in governance, and they are all people who had campaigned or worked with the people, know the problem of the people. So they be in a better position to take better decision than.
All right. We'll come back to this, but let's get to what he said concerning the manufacturing sector in his broadcast yesterday, increasing the capacity of that sector, creating good paying jobs. At the moment, what would be the fundamental problem with the manufacturing sector?
Of course, for the manufacturing sector, the fundamental problem of the fundamental had always been one, forex, two, the energy cost, three, the insecurity that is affecting movement of goods and services.
Do you think what the president says here solves those problems mentioned directly?
From what he is saying, there is still room for him to work more, in particular on the energy. For example, the gas. Let me give an example. The gas.
Yeah.
The gas today is still being sold for the manufacturer. The gas is being sold at dollar rates. We are not importing gas.
Why is this then sold at dollar rate?
That is the problem.
So if that's a major problem, and some of the other things you mentioned, and you look at what he says they want to do here, which is to just inject money into the sector, would you say that it solves directly those problems on a scale of 1 to 10? How much would you say this would solve any of these problems that you think are fundamental to the manufacturing sector?
I think this policy has mentioned, if he does not, he should get the manufacturers, interact with the manufacturers so as to know how to implement these things he has said. Because if he makes it a political issue where this support for the manufacturers are politicized, where you see that it's given to loyalists who are not real manufacturers, it will not make any sense. But if the manufacturers are put on board, for example, we have the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, both in the state levels. If a policy is being implemented concerning the manufacturers should be brought on board to participate in guiding, because we know where should pinches us most.
Yes. And for MAN, just to clarify, that MAN also is part of the Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Mines. Are you part of? Do you work with them or part of them?
Let me clearly make it clear.
Yeah.
MAN is purely manufacturers.
Okay.
These are manufacturers who turn raw material to finished product and then redistribute. What chamber is more like an association of commercial investors coming together to use that as an advocacy to sell their goods. But core manufacturers, those who own factories, facilities, and then turn raw material to finished product. These are the core manufacturers. And when we're talking about like what he's doing, he's supposed, the man as an association has a structure, has the think tanks. He's supposed to bring them in on board, and they'll be able to know who are the manufacturers and what they need. And if this is done, definitely the production capacity of the manufacturer will grow. For example, we have the African free trade market now that is soon coming. This is now time for us to strategize and increase the capacity of manufacturers so that we can be able to compete on the African.
We have a short commercial coming in less than 2 minutes. But what I want to ask you is, how would local refining of crude impact the manufacturing sector? Would it directly in any way impact the activities of manufacturers if we had the refineries working and we refine these products locally?
Definitely it will impact. It will improve the manufacturing, because first and foremost, if we are producing the petroleum locally, producing these things. For example, there are so many products from producing the crudes in Nigeria that some of them are raw materials for manufacturers.
So why then do you think the government isn't really talking about it as much as people would expect it to? When we come back from the commercial, of course, you possibly might let us know whether or not the protest that is planned for tomorrow, a man is a part of it or would be joining in that protest. Mr. Chairman smiling here. By the way, we are live on Facebook and Twitter, so join in on the conversation and let us know what your thoughts are. Nigeria Info 92.3 PH on Facebook, Nigeria Info PH on Twitter. Those are the social media handles, so you can join the conversation, watch, listen, and drop your comments. So we're asking you to also give us a response to this. You heard what the president said in his broadcast yesterday. After listening to him, would you ask for the protest to be suspended? Let us know after now. expand the manufacturing sector so that we have more people in communities have access to employment and not everybody looking at the civil service?
Yeah, I think on that aspect, basically the Rivers State branch of the Manufacturers Association are making attempts to talk with the state government so that we can sell the idea. Like we said, there are some moribund factories in Rivers State that could be reactivated back. And like I said during one of my visits, I said nobody believes that the International Brewery now, which was former Parbot Brewery, could come back to life and create the impact it's creating. The number of employment is employing. So many other moribund factories in Port Harcourt can be reactivated. Like I said, the Transamadi Industrial Estate still have the structures. What I mean, things like the gas pipelines, still in Transamadi, that can make the energy cost, the natural gas.
But why aren't companies taking advantage of it? We know that that pipeline runs through there.
Yeah.
It brings energy closer. Because
of, do I call it, the enabling environment, and that's what we want to talk with this.
What are those environment? What is the environment?
First of all, now the road network is okay now, but the next one is, for example, the gas, which we are talking about. We don't have the market here. Before this period, the gas price in the Rivers State used to be cheaper than the gas price in Lagos, because the then Ministry of Energy, the gas was being given to manufacturers at a little discount, which gave an advantage to the manufacturers in Rivers State by then. But today we are buying the same price with the manufacturer in Lagos, which the Lagos market is there. You produce from your factory straight to the market. Here you produce in Rivers State, you have to transport this product all the way down to Lagos for you to market this product, and the cost of transport. Another thing is our seaport. Our port is not well utilized the way it should be,
and this were not mentioned in the president's speech. I mean, even if lots of things have to do with the economy.
That's why I say that each state government must come down to its own state and look at these advantages. Like in Rivers State, if the state government call the manufacturers to come sit down, we'll be able to tell them those things that can override, turn Port Harcourt back, Rivers State back to the industrial hub it used to be. Because in those days, oil was there, but everybody knew Port Harcourt as one of the industrial places outside Port Harcourt. But Kano has already overtaken Rivers State. What advantage do Kano have? Nothing more than government support.
All right, let's listen to. Let's get on to Henry Ekine, rights activist, who is on the line. Let's just hear his reaction. Many have also. Hello, Mr. Ekine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on such short notice. I wouldn't take much of time. I'll do my best to make it very short and precise. Well, let's get your response. Quickly, Mr. Ekine, share with us. You heard the president's comment, a broadcast yesterday, and a lot of things that he had said. Many had highlighted some of the things that were not put out by the president. Here in the studio with me, I have the chairman for Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, who has also highlighted something that they thought the president would have looked at. As a rights activist in various groups that we have, what's your stand on the broadcast by the president? And when you look at it, what would be the conclusion? What signal does it send to you?
Thank you. For me, I think it was the president's intention to let Nigerians understand some form of, if you like, say a liberal or a welfare disposition of the Tinubu's administration. But that is really far from the immediate expectation of Nigerians, especially considering the very distressing and rather very frustrating experience that Nigerians are going through at the moment. So Nigerians actually expected something that will address the immediate solutions or immediate challenges that they are going through. But it does appear that the comment of Mr. President is more futuristic, because all of the pecuniary, if you like, the monetary palliatives or arrangements that the President spoke about in terms of policy are more or less in the long term or medium term, as the case may be, talking about funding and financing some aspects of the economy between now and until March of next year. So for me, yes, it's a response that Nigerians expected, that the presidency or the president should respond to the very crushing experience of Nigerians, but the expectation was more than those kind of promises that the president has actually made to Nigerians, which appears to be not addressing the immediate challenges and issues that Nigerians are confronting at the moment. So I take it that, but there are a lot of expectations if we really look in the mix of the president's speech. If we were able to address some immediate solutions to the crushing experience of Nigerians, then the months and the year to come, if the government would keep up to those promises, I think there are actually some motivators in some regards to enhancing small and medium scale enterprises. It's a good one to begin to think about strengthening smaller businesses in a country, because the economy of a country is largely driven by that level of enterprise, small and medium scale, and particularly enhancing the distribution chain.
Mr. Ekine, if you can hear me, a lot of people look at it and think it's just the government dressing the wound, window dressing, as against solving the fundamental problem. Even for the businesses, people feel if you take care of the issue of energy, you might not have to want to put in all of these monies that you are putting in now, because we know where most of those monies will go to. Even if you give to the business people, it might go to them spending on trying to get power to run the businesses, and at the end of the day might not even have enough to fund the business as effective as they would. Some people are expected that in that regard the president's comments should have addressed the refinery situation, which should bring down ultimately the price of petrol if we're refining locally, and overall affect the price of every other thing within the economy of the country. How do you respond to people with that opinion?
Yeah, that's within the context of my view. When I said it does appear that the president's speech didn't address the immediate expectations of Nigerians, but to be specific, Nigerians are more concerned about what will immediately be done to address these challenges before we talk about the promises of Mr. President with respect to funding certain levels of the economy, which, like I said, is going to probably mature sometime from March of next year. So I agree with you absolutely. But my reservation, my concern with respect to what the government needed to do at the immediate to be able to address some of these challenges, and then when some of the comments have been towards revamping our refinery, I asked the question, do we really understand the current position with respect to petroleum and petroleum issues with the Petroleum Industry Act, the new law, and then with the deregulation of the petroleum economy and of course the ownership of refineries at the moment? To the best of my knowledge and my understanding of the new energy regime in terms of the petroleum sector, it's clear that the NNPCL is like a private company at the moment, and then the refineries are owned by NNPCL. The refineries are subsidiaries of the NNPC. They've always been. So those refineries, we keep saying government refineries, how many refineries the government should invest in refinery. Before now, NNPC was a public corporation, and public corporations are government-owned companies, more or less. So the refineries at that time could come within government spending. But with the deregulation and absolute if you like, the regulation of the NNPC are no longer quite a state enterprise, then the subsidiaries of NNPC, including the refineries, become also private enterprises. So how much can the Nigerian state continue to invest into turning around the maintenance of these refineries? I am not sure that if the government really means what the government has presented to us by our understanding of deregulation, and then even the aspect of the NNPC now being a private enterprise, whether the government can still invest money into revamping our industry, our refineries. So I don't think that the failure of the president from making reference to the refineries, because what I hear most of the comments, the president's speech didn't make any reference to the refineries at all, and didn't make any promise or any definite government directive with respect to revamping the refinery. He couldn't have done so. It is the NNPC that should talk about their companies.
Oh, from this, if you put it from this perspective, let's just get one more response from you. And from all that the president has said and how you've interpreted it and what you've said, do you think that the protest put together by Labour to commence tomorrow should continue?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
The protest for tomorrow, after listening to what the president has said, do you think Labour should go ahead with that protest?
Now, I've had to talk about the planned protest for tomorrow. Labour, like every natural or artificial country, has a right to express itself one way or the other. The labor unions in this country are made up of Nigerians who are workers and then citizens with their right to express their dissatisfaction towards certain public policies. But what I worry, maybe I quickly should also state this here, is whether the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress or any of the other labor unions can actually seize or, if you like, strike in terms of withdrawing service in the areas that they work. So tomorrow is a work day, and then the time that they probably plan to do this protest, so to speak, is going to be work time. So what is going to be happening to workers with respect to going to work and withdrawing service? Because strike generally means any organized seizure or shutdown of work. And then so if labor unions and then with the members are planning to go whatever I call, whether it's a protest, at the time they are supposed to be at work, and then they are out on the streets seizing work, then that's where, for me, I think that they need to be a bit circumspect.
All right,
Otherwise,
Mr. Ekine,
every Nigerian civil society organization have the right to protest against any dissatisfied public policy in that regard, whether it is by petroleum sector prices or any other reason.
Okay, Mr. Ekine, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Always my pleasure.
All right, we'll open the phone lines and take a few calls now. I would also take messages we've been having on Facebook and WhatsApp. Remember that we're streaming live, so join in on the conversation. Nigeria Info 92.3 PH on Facebook, Nigeria Info PH on Twitter. The numbers to call are 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and we're asking you to tell us whether you would call for a suspension of the protest after listening to what the president had to say yesterday. Quickly, before we open the lines, we take the first call from Good News ML3. Mr. Chairman, what is MAN's position on this, the protest for tomorrow? Because we have several other unions and associations already saying, well, maritime workers, instructions are going out, Johesu, and you can name it, all saying TUC, they are working and they are going to be part of this protest. What does MAN has to say about it?
Well, first and foremost, MAN has never been seen strike, because strike is a sort of
it's a protest. They didn't say it's a strike. There's a court order that limits them from going on strike, this is a protest.
Yeah, so for the protest, like we said, if MAN's own view is that we can't dictate for the workers. We believe in advocacy, because we have workers who sometimes we want to protest if we don't communicate. Protest comes when there is no communication. So what it means now is that the government have the opportunity to communicate with the labor movement Because if there is dialogue, there will be no protest. But like you know, protests in every country, even in an advanced country, the fear is that if it's not properly managed, it creates more problem. But we believe that dialogue, the government and the NLC, maybe the protests will be managed.
Let's go to good news in Mount 3 now. Your response after listening to the president: should the protest be suspended? What is your view after the president's broadcast? Good news in Mount 3. Good morning. Go straight to the point for us, please.
Thank you very much. I listened to the president's speech. I took my time to listen. Very wonderful speech. He has good sense for the country. But your question, do they continue with this protest? Yes. Why do I say so? I think the federal government is used to putting the cart before the horse. That is one problem they have. Yes, in as much as I've seen sincerity in what President Tinubu is doing, believe about implementation. But my people say they used to happen to pay other people to learn lesson. Don't let it happen to you again 2 times or 3 times. And that thing again, my people used to say that the monkey meat is very sweet when they roast it. But what will you be eating until the meat is done? That is my own question before government refuse to answer. They promise 100 billion naira to attack the economy. But I think it's a misplaced priority. Taken from what happened under this government, where they get some billions of naira, and instead most of who took the 30 times the back. And it's like what happened. Some governors killed the system, the policies. So the other expecting able to follow the same line. What they're expecting to have done, not from the naira. No, just as Americans that are talking as it. Look at Okuku Steel in Kogi, revamping. Look at this company behind your there. Revamping. Industrial area for somebody, revamping. Kano, the textile industries, revamping. These companies will carry many thousands of Nigerians for work.
All right, good news. Let's go to our Krika now. Muriel is on the line. Muriel, good morning.
Thank you, Femi. Good morning.
Yes, go ahead.
Woman on the line. Look, Femi, listening to your guests and listening to the president yesterday, I realized that most of the policies that will affect manufacturers in this country mostly depends on the president. It's in the exclusive list. Now, Femi, I heard once that forex. I know that forex really affects them, foreign exchange, because most of them they import their raw materials. Now, Femi, I heard once that when they devalue the naira, it will increase sales. It will increase production, it will increase sales on the part of manufacturers, but it will reduce profit. I really need your guests to explain. I want to know more on that. If devaluing the naira will increase profit and will reduce profit but increase sales on their part. Now, Femi, when it comes to transportation, transporting their goods from one state to another, I think that is the state government can do. If one can bring up suggestions to the various state governments in ways by which the government can try as much as they can to reduce cost of transporting the goods for them. If they can do that, maybe it can even reduce the cost of the price of the goods. If they have bright ideas on how the cost of transporting goods to different states can be reduced for them, they should bring it out. You should tell us and tell me if devaluing the naira will increase profits, will increase sales and reduce profits.
All right, thank you very much, Miriam. Let's go to Daniel in Transamati. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
Okay, go ahead.
For me, I think I will not call for the suspension of the protest. I listened to the president yesterday, and I'm not convinced. Whatever the government will say without the refinery to work, to me does not make any sense to me. I listened to Henry. He was saying that refinery, NNPC is the owners of refinery, but some of these board members of NNPC has been appointed by the president. I listened to Buhari government. He consistently said the money they are donating to refineries and all that, meaning that government has some level of control in that NNPC. So if that is the case, why is the government so much silent about why our refinery will work? If the refinery work, it's as simple. Definitely the price of this petrol will come down. I was expecting Tinubu yesterday to say, okay, 6 months refinery will work. Seriously, I think that for me, I can even buy fuel for 1,000 to wait for that 6 months. Or say 7 months, this is what we are doing, the refinery will work. Because if you say with all this money you are going to donate for some of these SME and all that, if you donate this money to them, they will be employed and they will get salary. At the end of the day, they will go and buy fuel for 1,000. What is the need? That someone will go and get salary for 100,000 and spend it in petrol. You haven't addressed the real issue. The real issue is that our refinery are not working. We cannot refine locally, and if we cannot do that, government should tell us why are they really running away from that. Thank you very much.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Less than 2 minutes. Chairman, let's wrap things up, but with your response to the question from one of the callers, does devaluing the Naira increase production but reduce profit? How does that affect your business as manufacturers? Less than 2 minutes.
Yes, it does not at all. Devaluing Naira is not the best solution, like I still mentioned. Because, first of all, most of the factories, 80%, 70% of the raw materials is bought overseas. Now, if you buy devalued in Naira, you are going to buy in dollar and sell in Naira. So, how does it make profit in this? You talk about, like I would mention, is
so you lose profit if that happens, but
yes,
does it
definitely
help with production?
How does it cannot really help in production, because production is a function of input. If you have more fund to improve your production capacity, it means that the return on your production or your input must be good enough for you to make profit. And since you are not selling in dollar, you are selling in Naira, unless you are exporting. But long as we are selling domestic in Africa, for example, it doesn't make.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Okuku, Chairman, Man, Rivers and Bayelsa State. And yes, he was in the studio with Chibuzo as the Executive Secretary as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here with us. Hope to have you some other time for more conversation.
Thank you very much.
We'll go for a short commercial now. When we come back, we'll take most of your messages on WhatsApp and Facebook. of your messages before we wrap things up on the morning crossfire. Ibianga Iyala says, I totally agree. The federal government are deliberate in stifling our refineries just to make the Dangote refinery, in which they are major stakeholders. Okay, that's what Aniete is saying. Oh, I get your point. You are alleging that members of the government are part of stakeholders in that Dangote refinery, hence the reason why not much is being done about the NNPC limited refineries. Okay. Jafet Jojo says the planned protest should go ahead though, since the president didn't tell us when our refineries will start operation. Egele Ngere says, I think the protest has no meaning because the people and government are not sincere to each other while the inflammation is still going high with Central African friends. Okay, the franc is now exchanging for I didn't get it. I think you're just trying to talk about the Cameroonian currency and that of Nigeria and how comparing it to the Cameroonian currency, the naira is losing its value. On WhatsApp, labor unions should continue with their protest. If the presidential speech does not address their request, it's their constitutional right to protest. America Monday. This one says, the truth is that the president's speech was sugar-coated. He did not address the major problems of the country. So NLC should go ahead with their protest. Cliff Austin, you sent that in. This one says you are neglecting the 70 billion to manufacturing companies with a 60-month payback. Or is it that not important part of the president's speech last night? DJ from Port Harcourt. Well, the point of the conversation is not, well, of course they would pay back, but you heard from Man outlined their major problems and even said, well, the money is good though, but it does not really still solve the real problem that is on ground for that sector, even if we're putting all this money in there. And this one says, good morning, Andrew. The federal government are deliberate in stifling the refineries, and tell you sent that message in. That's it for us on the morning crossfire. Hello Port Harcourt would be next with Sam Oracle Chinedu, so stick around. Time for the news at 9.